inspecting elements using XPath. Okay, so first of all, using XPath is actually one of the most common ways to locate elements with Selenium Test Automation for many reasons. We will get to know a lot of these reasons later on throughout the course because we're going to be using it a lot and in very unique situations as well. Okay, but really there are two types of XPath. Okay, the first one is called a full XPath, also known as an absolute XPath. This XPath starts from the starting node of the actual DOM, and it starts with a single /. Okay, so let's go back to the web page here and let's inspect the password text box right here. Okay, so if you inspect this element or any element, you can just right click and go to copy and copy the full XPath. Okay, let's see what Chrome gave us. Let's go back to our notes here and let's paste it just right here for our notes. Okay, so you see that Chrome gave us this really long XPath here, and yes, it starts with a single / right here. Okay, and it kind of looks pretty interesting and weird, but to prove that this starts from the very parent and starting node of the DOM, you see how it starts with the HTML tag. Let's go back to the DOM and let's go all the way up, and you see that HTML is the starting node. This is the starting node of the entire DOM. Okay, and what's going on here, folks, we haven't really talked about this in detail. It's actually traversing through the entire DOM in order until it gets to that element. Okay, the password text box. Okay, so for example, it's going to body, then it's going to div, and it's going step by step. Okay, so that is what an absolute XPath is, and it would work, but it's not good practice to write this type of XPath because there are a lot more efficient ways to write an XPath. But as usual, to prove it works, okay, let's go back to VS Code. And okay, so I'm going to comment this out from the previous video. Okay, poor password text box, we've just been messing around with it the whole time. Let's go ahead and insert two lines. I'll do driver.findElement by.xpath, and I'll paste this as a string argument. And you see it kind of looks really long and weird, and our statement is really long, so this definitely is not going to be best practice, but just for the sake of learning, pretend it is. Okay, so 1 2 3 4 5 6. So I want to send keys to this text box. Okay, and I'm expecting Selenium to locate the password text box with this absolute XPath and send this password to that text box. Okay, let's go ahead and save our changes and let's see what happens. Okay, so Chrome browser opens. Okay, and it did work. The password was sent. Okay, we were able to locate the element and it worked. But then again, it's not good practice to write such a long XPath when there are many other better ways to write them. So I'm going to go ahead and write a comment here. I'm going to say locating using full / absolute XPath. Okay, that's method number 1. And I'm going to go ahead and comment this out just because I would like to use a relative XPath for the password text box as well. I'm going to go ahead and enter 2 lines. Okay, so let's go back to our notes. The second way is called a relative XPath. Now, there are many ways to write a relative XPath. In this video, I'll show you 2 of the most common ways. Okay, but this XPath is very convenient. It can start from any node or tag name in the DOM. It doesn't need to start from the parent node. And this XPath actually starts with 2 /. Now, to write them, I gave you 2 syntaxes you can follow here, like 2 formulas pretty much. This is one common way. 2 /, tag name, then the open bracket @ and then attribute equals, and then in single quotes the attribute value of the attribute that you want to use, and then closing bracket here. Okay, so let's go back to the page here, to the website. Let's inspect the password text box again. I'm going to right click on the HTML information of the password text box. I'm going to go to copy, and I'm going to copy the XPath now, not the full XPath, but the XPath. So once I click on this, let's see what Chrome gives us. I'm going to go ahead and paste it right here. Okay, so we get this XPath here, and it looks very similar to this right here, right? Except there's only one difference, and I'll talk about it in just a bit. So yes, it did start with 2 /, but it doesn't give us a tag name. Then it opens with an open square bracket. That's true. We have the add array. We have the add array here, and it looks like it's using the ID attribute. And this right here is the attribute value of the ID attribute. So this would work. Again, if you're going to do this, just make sure to replace these double quotes with single quotes. Now, the way I copy the XPath, even though it seemed convenient, you don't want to do that because most of the time Chrome can give us unreliable XPaths. Okay, but don't worry. I'll show you how to write some very good XPaths in the following videos. Okay, now, here, this asterisk here, what is this? This is not a tag name. This right here is basically telling Selenium to locate this XPath, okay? But it will scan the entire DOM and go to any parent node. As long as it finds this attribute with this attribute value, then it would work. The reason you don't want to use these asterisks with your XPaths is because there is a chance that there is another element in that page that may have the same ID and the same attribute value. So you kind of want to narrow this down a bit and replace the asterisk with the actual tag name, okay? So let's go ahead and write our own XPath, just to kind of also prove here that we can use XPaths for compound class names. Okay, so the tag name is input. So let's go back here and write this XPath. Let's do 2/ input open closing bracket add array attribute, okay, like this, equals, and then single quotes, and actually the attribute was class. Okay, so let me go ahead and replace this with class, and I'm gonna go back to VS Code, to the page, and copy this compound class name, and then come back here and paste it right here. So this is the XPath we wrote following this formula here, this syntax. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this, okay, and now I'm gonna go to VS Code. So I'm gonna say driver.find element by .xpath, and as a string argument, I'm going to pass this XPath here, and I want to send keys, and I want to send 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now, I'm expecting Selenium to locate the password text box using this relative XPath we just wrote, and we want to send the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 password. Let's see how this works. Okay. So I'm going to run this. Chrome browser opens. Username and password text box gets sent, and it worked. Okay, so that's really good. Let me go ahead and just add a comment here. So I'm going to say locating using relative, okay, relative XPath. Okay, now there is another popular XPath that a lot of folks write, and even I use in real-time projects. It's the contains text XPath. This is a wonderful XPath to use because once you memorize this, it's really easy to write, but you can only locate an element based off of the text of the element, and a lot of elements may not have text. Okay, so for example, I'm going to use this for the sign in button. You realize that the sign in button has the text sign in, so I'm just going to go ahead and use this syntax. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create some lines here, but let's go back and let me inspect this sign in button. Okay, and the tag name is button now. Okay, so let's go back here and do 2/ button open closing bracket, and then I'll say contains open closing parentheses, and inside I'll write text and then open closing parentheses, then comma, and then single quotations. Okay, now double quotations would work, but again, you don't want to do that because then Eclipse or IntelliJ will try to break that string with control characters, and it just looks a little weird. Okay, so let's go ahead and enter the text, and we need to enter the text the exact same way that we see it in the element here. Okay, so it's capitalized S and then capitalized I, everything else is lowercase. Okay, so I'm going to type in sign in, okay, like this. So let me go ahead and copy this. Okay, and let's go back to the website here, and to confirm that it works, right here, if you don't have this search bar open down here, again, you can just do Control F or Command F if you have Mac, and we'll open this search bar here. We can just go ahead and paste that, and if you see 1 of 1, that means we have properly located this element here, so that is good. Okay, Now, to prove that the text has to be spelled the exact same way, let's say that I was just a little bit lazy and wrote this XPath with a lowercase s. You see, it says 0 out of 0, and it doesn't work and it won't work. So it needs to be spelled the exact same way. Okay, so let's go back to VS Code and let's click on this element using this contain text XPath. Okay, so I'm going to say driver dot find element by dot XPath, and I'm going to go ahead and paste this XPath here. And what do we want to do? We want to just click on it. There's a method in Selenium called .click, which is what you use to click on elements like buttons or radio buttons and checkboxes. We will discover that later, okay? We'll talk about that in the next videos. So I'm expecting Selenium to locate the sign-in button using this contains text XPath and then click on it. So let's go ahead and run it. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so the browser opens and it successfully logged in. Okay, so we went ahead and used these XPaths, okay, the absolute XPath and the relative XPath. I'm going to go ahead and say locating using relative contains text XPath, okay, and it worked successfully, right? So there's one more thing about these XPaths. To work with radio buttons and checkboxes, sometimes we may have to add an index or specify an index with the XPath. That's going to be a more advanced level of writing XPaths, but don't worry, we got your back, we got you covered. In the videos where we will go over XPaths or checkboxes, we will introduce that, okay? So keep watching this course and you will keep improving for sure. Okay, now to finalize all of this locator discussion, inspecting elements is a crucial aspect of test automation. While you may have options to inspect an element, there are recommended approaches to inspect elements which help maintain clean code. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and write all this code out that we wrote together for the sake of your practice, and I'll see you guys in the next video.